Wild Ones Podcast, episode 19. I'm Francis, this is Jimmy, and this is the show where we chat about bike stuff. People are angry with us, Jimmy.
Very angry.
They're angry because we don't introduce producer Emily at the start of the podcast. But she's the one writing the intros, and she doesn't put herself in.
Who's she? Cat's mother?
Cat's mother.
Oh, that's an old person thing. That's the sort of thing like my grandmother used to say.
Straight off my head.
So from this podcast, Emily is no longer with us. We've sacked her because she's caused a controversy.
I've caused my own controversy. I think people think that it's you guys oppressing me or something like that. For clarity, I don't want to be introduced. This is not my show. And I want the freedom to be able to chip in as little as possible sometimes, because it's quite hard. If I'm talking to you, I'm not focusing on... I try to live edit this as we go. I work out which bits are going in and which bits aren't going in, which makes the edit easier at the end. And if I'm talking, it's harder to do that. So this is the Francis and Jimmy show, and I will chip in as much as I want. Thank you very much.
What I've just learned is Emily actually censors us and removes bits of the podcast that she thinks that are not funny or appropriate.
That's
or
outrageous.
Entertaining.
All of it's funny and entertaining.
Unbelievable.
That's what I thought.
So if there's ever a moment where anyone thinks that I'm controversial or miserable or boring, it's actually all in the edit and it's nothing to do with me. I'm permanently happy and entertaining.
You should see the bits that I take out, Jimmy.
You should see the bit she's added. She's been getting AI voices of us and putting it over the top of our faces.
Yeah.
Do you know the name of the current national hill climb champion?
No.
Andrew Feather.
That's a very good name for a hill climber, isn't it?
It's so good, I think it would be considered cheating. It's like Ben Swift and Connor Swift.
Do you think that's real? Like, surely if you're doing a hill climb, you don't have to show ID. And if you were like good at hill climbing, that's the kind of thing where I'd be like, right, I'm Jimmy Cloudboy.
Well, you need ID. You have to get... Do you need a British cycling license to do? No, maybe you don't. If Lance Armstrong was a rower, that would be cheating as well.
Armstrong. Or a swimmer.
Or a swimmer.
Or a power lifter.
True. So Andrew Feather is a 3-time British national hill climb champ.
Congratulations.
He's been in the news this week because he's back at the national hill climb, which we're going to defend his title on a disc brake bike.
Uh-oh.
Which is upsetting all of the weight weenies.
Impossible for him to be able to win that on a disc brake bike.
He's going to be riding a Cannondale Super 6 Evo, presumably because it's a sponsor deal. That's speculation. He's clearly not obsessing over every weight saving. He doesn't chop his handlebars down because he uses the bike for other rides other than hill climbing. And he's going to be riding with a rotor power meter, which is not a super light crank either.
I've got a lot of respect for this.
What, just normal bike?
Yeah.
Just rock up on a normal bike. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
That's like... not how it should be. There are no rules, and it's fine to make hill climbing bikes, and it's quite fun. I've been due to make a hill climbing bike out of a steel bike for a long time now, and I've never got around to it. I actually have an entrance to the National Hill Climb.
You're supposed to be working that day,
but we're working, so I'm gonna have to forego.
Oh no!
For another year, I'll just have to take the title next year and officially legally change my name to Cloudboy by that point.
Well, and then he'd be in trouble, wouldn't he? Because you'd be so fast.
Yeah. I think that's cool. I know for a fact that Cannondale have sponsored other hill climb champions in the past, so it is possible that it's some kind of sponsorship deal. And I do not know, this is speculation, but I will guess that Cannondale don't do a rim brake bike anymore. But rim brake or disc brake, this guy races hill climbs on proper bikes, not hill climbing bikes. So even if it was rim brake, it's still going to be a disadvantage to someone that's already in a proper hill climb bike. So it doesn't really matter that it's disc brake or not. It's still going to be incredibly light.
How many people do you think will be on disc brakes in this hill climb? Bear in mind, it's 650 riders are doing this.
I think about half now.
I think more.
Because I think a lot of people will be on newish bikes.
Yeah.
And the cost of making a proper hill climbing bike is just like astronomical.
How many people do you think will be on light bikes? In inverted commas.
37
people.
Yeah. I don't know.
I bet there'll be 100 people who have really considered and built a bike to be super light for this.
But it's quite hard to be able to judge that. So, for example, Chris Hall, our mate, is doing the hill climb. He's doing it on a complete bike, but he has done lots of stuff to that bike so that it's like 6 kilos or just under 6 kilos or something rather.
I would consider that making it super light.
Yes.
This is exactly what he's done.
But you would look at it and it look like a normal bike.
Mm-hmm.
So you put your statistics would be very hard to achieve.
Mm-hmm. But would it be very practical riding anywhere else because he's put a mountain bike crank on it?
Oh, is it?
So no is the answer. Very tiny chainring.
Easy to change, though, isn't
Easy to change. So, like, for people who don't know, hill climbs are massive in the UK. It's essentially an individual TT, individual time trial from the bottom of the hill to the top of a hill. Most of them, well, they vary in length, but a hill climb specialist generally is really good at doing 1 minute to 2 minute power because a lot of the climbs in the UK are that long. The struggle hill climb, which is the national event this year, it changes location every year, is significantly longer. I think it's like 10 minutes. I mean, we rode it and we were just pootling along. And we were 20 minutes.
I think it was even probably
maybe even
more
longer. Or we were messing around filming. But it's a really long climb with a descent in the middle. And the first bit's really steep, the last bit's really steep, but it really undulates during the ride.
Do you want some numbers?
Yeah.
So the official Strava segment is 4 kilometers long, 349 meters of elevation, which makes it 8.2% average. The current com is held by Welsh boy Ed Laverack. How do you say his surname? Laverack. Ed Laverack. The current male com is 11 minutes and 19 seconds.
I think Andrew Feather is going to have problems with Ed Laverack. Not problems. They're not going to have a fight.
They're going to have a fight. A cyclist fight. They're the best.
Unfortunately, I think Andrew Feather might win the fight.
Do you?
Yeah, based on purely how they look. But I think Ed Laverack's going to beat him up the hill.
Do you?
Because Ed Laverack is extremely good at that power duration.
Yeah.
So he's a super light guy. He's like 60 kilos. His power numbers are astronomical, like pushing 400 watts for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like nearly.
He's ex-pro, isn't he?
Yeah, he used to race for Rafa Condor, maybe a different JLT Condor.
Yeah.
He was racing at the same time. Just when I stopped, he had started in that same sort of level. And he's full-time YouTuber and cycling coach, I think. He's got some great videos. There'll be a link in the description down below. I messaged him saying, just wondering, what's your best ever 20-minute power? And he said,
I could probably do it now at a push at the weight I am now, which is 60. Because obviously I'm training for the struggle, which is like 12 minutes. So if I'm doing like 7.3, 430, 425 watts for 12, then I would imagine I could do 400 for 20 if I can hang on.
I'll be honest, I kind of, it was like that, the hangover moment, and it was just numbers. And
based on that, I think Andrew Feather might have his work cut out.
Well, Ed is the current.
He's got the KOM.
holder, so he knows what he's up against.
He's also spending a week there right now.
Acclimatizing.
Right now? Is it next week? No. He's there for a week before acclimatizing to the altitude.
And the temperature.
Of Kendall or wherever it is. Yeah.
Ambleside, I believe.
Yeah. I reckon, I mean, it's a hard, because it's not power the whole time. There's that weird little descent in the middle. It's very quick. I wonder if you'd get in an aerotuck and...
Check this out. And if you want to know what the climb looks like, go and watch the Cade Media video of Francis and I riding in the Lake District from earlier this year. It's
riding
a great
the climb
video.
Much slower than Ed and Andrew Feather.
Yeah.
Good luck to them both. Hopefully we'll see them at the hill climb in a couple of weeks' time.
And we should definitely get a tally of rim brake versus disc brake.
Definitely.
That was Emily's suggestion.
Shimano is facing a lawsuit now over its broken cranks. This is the latest news in the Hollowtech crankset recall, which we've spoken about in a podcast before. A proposed class action lawsuit has been filed against Shimano Specialized and Trek in the USA. Class action means?
It's on behalf of a group.
I.e. all of the people that own one of these cranks. The lawsuit alleges that Shimano was aware for years that its cranksets had issues. It also alleges that the crankset recall is inadequate. And by that, not recalling all of the Hollowtech cranksets, Shimano's trying to limit the cost of fixing the issue at the expense of consumers. It claims that Shimano and other bike brands, including Trek and Specialized, fraudulently concealed the defective cranksets and sold them anyway.
This is a lot to unpack.
That sounds weird to me, but is that because they're American companies and this is an American suing?
So they can go after them.
Yeah, they can go after them.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's an American lawsuit. The class action is for anyone who's owned one of these cranks in the US, and I'm guessing it's because Trek and Specialized are also US brands, so it won't really affect any of us. Although, you know, sometimes if their lawsuit is successful, there might be a knock-on effect. There might be replications in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
There are currently riders who have a Hollowtech crank from the years specified. I haven't got the information here. They have to take it to an authorized dealer for inspection. We talked about what that inspection entailed in a previous podcast with mechanic Nick, who runs a bike shop. It's basically a visual inspection and listening for a noise. Cranksets showing no signs of separation don't qualify for a replacement. The lawsuit also alleges this will leave riders in the frightening position of having to ride a dangerous bicycle for months or years, waiting for their cranksets to separate and potentially causing a crash before Shimano will give them a new one. It's asking for defendants to admit the cranks are defective and to reimburse all customers who've been left out of pocket due to defective cranks. Do you think that would be catastrophic for Shimano and they wouldn't have enough money, or do you think Shimano are a big enough business to absorb that kind of cost?
Well, Francis, I've done a bit of background on this.
Have you actually?
I have, yeah.
All right.
That's what I was doing when you guys were actually preparing for the podcast. Okay, so Shimano is a very big business. They're based in Japan. They have multiple parts of the business, like, for example, they have fishing and loads of other stuff. Their annual revenue in the region, or for the last few years, has been in the region of $5 billion.
Woo-hoo.
So they're a very large business, and in the group set space are just astronomically huge. They typically have a profit in the region of about $1 billion. So they have a very, very healthy profit margin. Mm-hmm. In the last 5 years, their share price is down. In the last 5 years, their share price is up. Their share price is down since COVID. But interestingly, since this news has come out, their share price is up 1%. So this news as a whole has not scared investors. So financially, no one thinks that this is a big impact for Shimano as a business. So to put that into a little bit of context, if there's 2.8 million cranks that apparently this affects, if it costs them $300 per crank to fix every single one of those cranks, which I assure you it costs a lot less than that, that would be $840 million. So in 1 year, if it cost them $300 to replace every single affected cranks, they would still be profitable.
Which it wouldn't, because it doesn't cost them that much.
Exactly.
Great analysis, Jimmy.
They're ultimately trying. They're a publicly traded business, so they want money left over for shareholders. That's just the objective of publicly traded businesses, ultimately. So they're effectively just trying to reduce the exposure, the financial exposure, to making this go away. But if they had to fully replace everything, they're still fine.
It reminds me of that bit in Fight Club where the lead character who works for a car company explains that if the price of a recall is more than the cost of paying out insurance claims after horrible crashes, then they don't do the recall.
It arguably is that. It's like, it's business. That's how it's being approached. Like, there's an issue. How do we make that issue go away as cheap as possible?
Yeah.
There's another part to this, though, isn't there? And that's what that mentality does to consumer trust in brand and like brand damage.
I have to say as well, though, it is hard knowing they obviously don't want to finish a financial year with a significantly lower, like 90% lower profit than previous years, but they can absorb it if they need to. But a lot of, I would imagine a lot of their decision will be based on what the response is. So, like, if, for example, they've said this is what we're going to do, if everyone had gone like, oh yeah, cool, that's amazing, thanks, then they're going to go, excellent, cool, achieved. But that hasn't happened, so I'm willing to bet that they are going to be comfortable adjusting that. But we'll see.
They've given it a try.
Well, yeah, it's
essentially.
kind of like, well, you know, we think this is a reasonable option, because you have to remember with products, like for example, the car industry is a great example of it. Like those products kill people. That's part of the business. Like as savage as that is part of the business. There's cars that fail, and as a result of them failing, people die. But that's literally part of that industry. Like they know that happens as a result of some of their failures.
Have you got a Shimano crank from those years?
Yes.
Do you have it on a bike currently?
Yes.
Are you now hesitant to ride it?
Not really. It's the bike that is going to become my hill climb bike.
Oh.
That's probably my most ridden crank of all the cranks I own. Granted, it doesn't get ridden anymore, or it hasn't for a couple of years, and it's been fine. We're not heavy riders. The only person that I know that goes through Shimano cranks like glasses of water is an absolute brute of a cyclist.
Rory
the Viking. He's...
I thought it was more about corrosion and bad weather riding.
But surely it requires... Well, I don't know. I probably... do you know what? I tell you what I would do. I would probably still ride it.
Yeah.
And I would stay in the saddle.
You feel safe doing that?
Yeah.
I've got one. I'd be hesitant. I was put doubt in my mind.
What are you going to do? Are you going to find a dealer?
Oh, I don't know where the dealers are. I found out that Nick is... you were chatting about it in the last podcast.
I think what you mean is Nick has found out he's not an
Nick has
authorised
found
dealer.
out he's not an authorized Shimano dealer, which is some sort of scheme where a bike shop has to pay, or a mechanic has to pay an amount of money for the year to be an authorized Shimano dealer.
Yeah.
And Nick's not one of those. He just sells Shimano. So you can't get your crank looked at by him, inspected by him. I'd have to go somewhere else, and that's really annoying. So probably not. Also, I think my crank's fine.
I'm definitely going to get mine done. I just need to find out who
You can take it.
can do it. There'll be someone in town, I guess. But
Well, there must be in the whole of Newcastle. It'd be annoying if there wasn't.
I have a video idea. We should get both of your cranks and actually go through the inspection process and film what it's like.
secret camera.
Well, not even secret, no.
Yeah, it's fun though, isn't it?
It's not secret anymore.
Makes it more fun when it's a secret camera, doesn't it? We'll put disguises on. This is a great idea. You come up with the best ideas.
But see what it's like. But also, how would you feel if at the end of it they go, yeah, it's fine? Would that be enough to be like, okay, I feel reassured now?
No.
Would you be able to sell that crank on with someone else?
It's how long you ride the crank for, isn't it? If they're all made the same, they're all predisposed to this issue, or there's a risk of this issue happening, which makes me think if I'm riding, you're doing risky stuff on a bike sometimes. You're sprinting out of corners, and if you're on a descent, you don't want your... I've seen, for example, I've seen someone's chain come off on a descent. You could die. You could go off the edge of a cliff and you could die. If your crank snapped, same sort of thing. You're putting down full power and suddenly something breaks, you get in big trouble.
Literally.
Big trouble.
I think that's the whole point of this lawsuit, isn't it?
I have actually just found the authorized dealer search function on the Shimano website, and within 100 kilometers of this location, there are 50 plus dealers.
Oh, that's a lot.
One of which is Recyclebike.
Sweet.
So we can go to Recyclebike and, well, actually, no, it's not wasting their time because they're going to get paid for it. There are some national businesses that are on the list as well.
Oh, they get like 50 quid or something for doing the
I
inspection.
think it's £34 or something like that.
I saw some mechanics on Facebook, because kind of weird Facebook pages that I follow, and one of them was very concerned about, is it fair that mechanics are being asked to do this inspection when all it is a visual inspection? It's not like they're x-raying it or looking inside the crank, and would liability fall on them if something went wrong in the future with that crank? And apparently someone was replying in the comment, another mechanic saying like, no, the owner still does lie on Shimano, and they're protected in some way, which is good.
Good to query that as a mechanic.
I hope Shimano just replace them all. I'd want my crank replaced after hearing all of the horror stories. No?
Well, we should definitely get down Recycle your bike and take ours down.
And see what they say.
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a good idea.
Jumbo-Visma apparently have a different name. They're going to become Visma Lisa Bike in 2024.
Whoa, what?
Lisa. Like Lisa Simpson. Lease a bike. Like rent a bike.
Oh, lease. As
Yeah,
in to lease a bike.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
They've changing names. So, like many cycling teams, their name is their sponsor.
Yeah.
Which is a weird setup, isn't it?
I've never liked that.
There's a few people who do it differently. Techers, okay, small UK team. Legion, they're just called Legion, and their sponsors change sometimes.
I think at the level both of those examples are at, though, you can do what you want. It's just like us starting the Wild One Cycling Club.
Tour de TDT. It's the Tour de Titema cycling team, Conti team. They are like TDT something. It's a shame, really, that teams change like that.
My opinion is that because of this, it is so hard to get behind a team.
Yeah.
And it's not even that, like football, rugby, American football, all of those kind of sports. Like, yes, they're geographical, but it's almost not even about it being geographical. Like, how many people did you go to school with that support like Liverpool or Man United, and they have no connection to those at all? They're just like backing the team. But what is consistent is a colour and a name. And I think it's so important, and I wish it would come through into cycling somehow. One of the things that we always used to do with Attacus and sponsoring teams and things like that is we would always push back. So if we were involved in something significant where the traditional thing, and we were sponsoring that team as the kit supplier, the old school thing is, well, we'll cover the kit in sponsors. And we would go, no, we are the kit supplier. We are going to make a kit that looks fantastic, and it is not a place for other brands. If other brands are involved, then that's their space. And what that enabled us to do is to create stuff that just looked and feels cool rather than looking like a billboard that people go, ugh.
Then you're stuck with companies that want to sponsor the team that don't have a cycling-specific product and not being able to advertise very well, though.
There's always ways to advertise. Be creative.
But people want the finish line photo, don't they, with Lidl or whatever written on.
Does it really matter if Werner ladders have the name Werner on the side of a jersey and a little bit of font on the side? No. However, if you did a promo where they're cycling up ladders, you're going to remember it.
I would watch that. That would be good. Lease a Bike is a PON-owned leasing company. PON, P-O-N, is the company, the parent company that owns Cervelo.
And everything else.
Focus. Other things.
Volkswagen, Audi, Seat, Skoda.
Oh, damn.
They
own a lot of stuff.
Humongous. Cycling to them is like a little... I bet the founders or the owners of PON are cyclists, and it's just for a little bit of fun on the side based on their portfolio.
Potentially. But Cervelo is their existing. Cervelo's, a lot of their budget has gone now. I mean, they've dropped ambassadors. So they seem to be focusing a lot on the pro cycling team, which is now changed name. But we'll see.
Actually, yeah, if a PON group is one of the primary sponsors, then they are definitely spending a lot of money on that. Because I'm sure, maybe it was on that Netflix documentary, I'm sure the budget for Jumbo-Visma is like 50 million. And a lot of that's going to come from headline sponsors. So, wow.
We should point out before we end this segment that the name change of the team has not been confirmed by the team. So this is speculation at this point.
My favourite kind of news.
Now on to our big question of the day. What bike stuff have you wasted the most money on through the years?
Oh, God, where haven't I wasted money? The first thing that comes to mind is stems. Always trying to find the right fit and get the right distance, different points of like when I used to race and when I didn't used to race. Like there was a point when I used to race and I had a 130 stem and my position was unbelievably long and therefore it was more aero, and now I ride 90, maybe even 80 on stuff. I've bought so many stems trying different riding positions and things like that over the years, and then you end up with just this collection of stems and eventually you have to get rid of them.
Or keep them and then you can change again.
The annoying thing that I also find in that space is not so much anymore, but at that point I had an interest in how much my bike weighed, and I had an interest in the quality of the product. So you have this like, because obviously once you use it, you're not going to be able to return it. So there's this kind of, idea of like, right, I want to try a 90 mil stem rather than 110. Do I go straight in on the one that costs £100, or do I buy one for £15 to try it and then maybe buy £100 one later? Like, what's it like? I've always thought I wish you could like borrow stuff, borrow more things, test stuff.
You can.
Well, how? Go on.
From my friends.
Well, what if they don't have what you want?
I'd be like, Jake, can I borrow a stem?
And what if he doesn't have the one
Everyone's got stems. All my friends are cyclists. Everyone's got loads of stems. And I had loads of stems. Then you just swap stems.
You know what this reminds me of?
Pokemon cards.
That guy on GCN when he randomly pulled a Dura-Race crank
I'm sorry, some people are in that situation. I would lend you a stem. Despite you making fun of me, I would lend you a stem. Yeah, I mean, well, the logical thing, if you don't have friends with loads of stems, is to just buy a £10 stem from the internet on like Planet X or whatever. Make sure it's the right length, try it, and then you haven't spent loads of money. And then buy the carbon one when you want it.
But then you've
Actually,
also...
you don't even need a carbon stem, do you? Like, aluminium stems, outrageously light.
I've never bought carbon stems.
No.
I've always used...
Unnecessary.
There was actually a Dada one, which was lighter than carbon stems. It was like 90 grams or
Yeah,
something rather.
but alloy.
But it was like 220 quid.
Yeah.
And
I
I bought one, and I've moved it from bike to bike to bike ever since.
Oh, good. Get your money's worth.
Yeah.
My thing, I spent a lot of money on drivetrain since meeting Nick Vieri from the bike shop, who insists on taking people on gravel rides, which I think this is a conspiracy. He takes people on gravel rides, not on gravel, but on mud. So it's basically cross-country mountain bike, but everyone's riding gravel bikes. And I'd take my mountain bike with me. But honestly, a month to 6 weeks of riding, new jockey wheels, new chain, new cassette.
This is all his ploy as a...
Everything just gets... It's like grinding paste. It's so much mud. It just gets completely wrecked. People don't understand how quickly you wear through stuff. In fact, there was a comment on a video of Nick talking about how many jockey wheels he gets through a year. Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, I get through 2 sets a year. And someone was like, 2 sets a year? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, you clearly haven't ridden with Nick or seen the riding he does. He'll easily get through 2 sets of jockey wheels a year. I'm surprised it isn't 6 sets.
It's called...
He commutes all the time, and you ride like...
We call it Vieri gravel.
Yeah, Vieri gravel is a special thing.
Do you ever get served a reel on Instagram or ever other social media platform you're on where it's like, I don't know, someone driving a car off the side of a cliff or something rather?
Yes.
You know, where something like ridiculous happens. Like there's a mudslide and then there's a load of people at the bottom of it thinking they're going to get like obliterated by like a avalanche or something like that. Every time I see something like that, which is not that often, I send it to Nick with the letters VG for Vieri gravel.
I send him one of your gravel rides. We both do the same thing.
Yeah, clearly. VG, just Vieri gravel from now on. VG.
Vieri gravel. His other thing is he calls smooth gravel, he calls it London grav.
I think that became a thing in an attempt to wind me up personally, and then he got everyone to start calling it London gravel or vegan gravel.
Yeah. Moving on to stuff, other things that you wasted money on. One is Nick's caused this to happen as well. Dropper posts.
Yeah, I bought a dropper post.
You bought a dropper post for your gravel bike? Yes,
for my very specific gravel bike, and it's just pointless.
You don't use it?
No. And then I'm like, Nick, I'm going to get rid of the dropper. He's like, no, you're going to need it for the rides with me. And I'm just like, but like for what? He's like, going downhill. I'm like, I go downhill slow. He's like, yeah, but you're just going to need it. I'm like, I don't. He just convinced me to buy a 650 quid dropper post for no reason. And I thought
it's not even a cheap one.
No, it's the E-Tab one.
As a test, just get the cheap version.
But well, actually, it isn't justified. I was going to say, but he did give me a carbon seat post for free, which he had lying around to replace it. But that means I've just bought a £650 carbon seat post.
Where's the dropper?
Well, I still have it.
Oh,
I'm too scared to get rid of it now in case I do want it. I have to keep it now because it'll come around that I want it.
I've never ridden a dropper on a gravel bike because I have a seat post that doesn't allow that. It's not round. But on a mountain bike, cross-country mountain bike, dropper is an insanely good upgrade. However, if you've never ridden a dropper before, it does take a lot of getting used to. It's very strange not having, even just that saddle, being able to lean on it and kind of, while you're descending, having that there and you're touching it makes a big difference. Yeah. And then that being gone is like, oh, it gets a good few rides to get the hang of it. And then you start realizing how much freedom it gives you on a descent.
Yeah, I still don't want it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Another one from
I'll make you an offer.
Is, well, you want it? Yeah, you can buy it off me if you want, please.
£6. £6?
Please. Bikes in general. Again, I don't do this anymore. However, a few years back, I basically used to change my bike continuously. I used to very much be a shiny person. I never ever bought like super high-end bikes. I would usually, well, you know the bikes. I would always have a very well-respected alloy frame, and then all of my finishing kit. I'd have a top-end finishing kit, top-end group set, Parcours Wheels, and I would just basically move that from frame to frame to frame to frame to frame.
You honestly did about 6.
And losing a bit of money every single time. But I had like a new bike every time I want. I've probably had like 4 cyclocross bikes / gravel bikes, like one a year, and then I've probably had 2 road bikes a year, and then I would like rotate my road bike, rotate my winter road bike, which would have had mud guards on it, and just kept changing them for just absolutely no reason whatsoever. In hindsight, and what I've learned definitely from us doing some of the entry-level stuff that's around at the minute, I wouldn't buy a bike that was spec'd at the level I used to have a bike.
You get away with a lot cheaper.
I would spend less money, and I would be like, this bike's sick, and be comfortable with that and enjoy that.
You could still change stuff. I think changing it's because it's new and fresh and interesting, and the act of changing things, whether it's on a bike or a guitar. I do this on, like, I've got a Les Paul, and I constantly put the tremolo arm on, like this Vibramate thing, which, you know, like whammy bar, and then the scratch plate on, and then I'm like, no scratch plate, and then I'm like, oh no, 11 gauge strings and things like that, and just change. But changing it then makes me want to play it for another month. And then I'll make a few changes. That's part of the journey and part of the hobby, I think. So same with bikes as well. Like, try this chainring, try this combination of gears.
It's arguably a subscription model then, is what you're saying.
I guess if that's how you want to...
There's effectively a variable monthly fee.
That's how you want to look at it? Yeah.
Said product.
Yes. Ongoing thing. Tinkering is just as fun as riding a bike.
Yes, it's fun, but it's also very expensive.
Yeah, only if you stop buying such expensive stems. Buy cheap stuff.
Well, I don't buy anything anymore. I'm content with my collection.
Good.
Apart from my dropper post. Right, what else have you got for the list?
I've got... This one is a problem. What? Mini pumps and little saddlebags. And then the more bikes you get, even though it's a very quick job switching a saddlebag to another bike.
You just don't want to do it.
No, you don't want to do it. And then when you've got the saddlebag, guess what? You need to always have it filled as well. So you need a little multi-tool and a little like tubeless plug thing in each of them, all matching, because you want the good one. You know, the latest one you've discovered. And then you need so multiples of each. The mini pump thing has get a little mini frame pump that attaches underneath your bottle cage, and that's great. And then you need one for all your bikes. But then what if you lose the little clamp thing? You can't just buy that on its own because it's almost the price of a pump. So you might as well buy a whole new pump and have a spare pump. Before you know it, you have 20 pumps in your house.
On the subject of one per bike, I think we are an anomaly for that. I don't think most cyclists do that. I think we are just the kind of person, like, I want to be able to just grab any one of my bikes and not have to be like, oh, does it have this and does it have that? It just needs to be ready to go. But I think we're an anomaly. But I think we should ask our listeners / viewers, do they do that as well? Do you have one set of spares that you switch between bikes, or do you have a set of spares for every single bike that you have just ready to go?
I imagine most people will be normal people and just have one bike.
I have one last entry.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in the same vein as stems. It's like things that you don't know what they're going to be like until you use them. Shoes. I have wasted money on a lot of shoes. Most notably, I very foolishly bought a €400 pair of full carbon dancing shoes, pretty much, that I'm not even sure why. I like the look of them. They look like super bougie. They're like black carbon and like shiny gold, and they're just so over the top. And I was just like, oh, there's just something a little bit bang about them. And I like the idea of black bike, black everything, but then these black shoes with little pings of like shiny gold on them. And I have ridden them once on the road with you and once on the turbo, and they are so hideously uncomfortable. They have been put to the side.
You don't think they're going to get better?
Well, they're proper
They're
carbon
just
shoes.
not moldable. Nothing. There's no.
Well,
can you put them in the oven?
You can mold them, which I haven't done yet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it with Hazel Childs, who is the greatest podiatrist in the world, who's going to hopefully make them fit my feet better.
Yeah.
But they're just like, they're so carbon and aggressive that like they're just.
Do they dig in places? Is
everywhere.
that what? See, that's what
Everywhere,
I had a pair of
Francis.
Lakes, and they were very harsh to start with, even after molding them. But then it turns out the places that were digging in, you can literally mold them like 3 or 4 times. I think that is the limit.
Yeah,
probably can do it more. I put them in again, and then I just put my finger where it was digging in, and I molded that bit out, and then they were
on the
perfect.
inside of them, is there like padding?
No,
Or is
it's
it
just carbon.
Bare carbon.
Yeah, it's just carbon.
Because do you remember Bradley Wiggins had a pair of like carbon shoes back in the like Team GB days, where they were just like, it was like a custom
thing.
That's basically what these are. They're just like carbon.
I guess it's another example of when you're racing, you're prepared to be in discomfort.
Well, yeah, that is ultimately it.
A lot of people are. People are like, James always says it, bike fitter, friend of ours. It always surprises him, still to this day surprises him how prepared people are, or how tolerant people are to being in pain on a bike. Because people just dig in and deal with it.
Focusing on performance.
Thinking
that's going to get performance.
Yeah, I guess ignorance is bliss in a lot of situations. But your example is a perfect example of fit first, buy later. And that goes for shoes as well.
Yeah, but you can't if it's an online brand, can you?
You should, online only. You can't buy them in bike shops at all.
No.
Then yes, avoid them or return them.
Yeah, it was complicated. They were like on the verge of launching,
Right.
and it just got complicated.
Yeah. If you're struggling with shoes, there are shops out there that will fit shoes for you. So maybe look into that, and it might save you money, but it's an expensive thing in the first place. So it is difficult. It is difficult. Time for another round of overrated or underrated. I'm going to read out a list of things, and you're going to tell me if they're overrated or underrated. Cyclocross.
Underrated.
Agreed.
It is the best.
Awesome.
The best form of bike racing there is.
Yep. From the vibe.
It's a good
from
vibe.
The experience.
Yep.
The bikes are cool because you can ride them everywhere. It's just good, isn't it?
Apparently, every time I talk about cyclocross in the Northeast, it tells me that, actually, I probably shouldn't. Can we bleep out that name? Bleep tells me that it's very elitist up here, and it's very cliquey, and they're very old-fashioned, and if you do things in a certain way, they get miserable with you, which is not in line with cyclocross. But I think this is more about Bleep than it is about the cyclocross people in the Northeast.
But potentially. Do you reckon Bleep sometimes rubs people up the wrong way?
All the time.
Yeah.
I used to race cyclocross in the London space, and it was class. I loved it. It's such a good like winter thing. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's muddy, but like it's just a great way of smashing yourself through winter and having a good time, or not smashing yourself. Like it's like many things in a mass participation event, which essentially it is. There's that very small percentage at the front who are like, might win this, so I'm going to be really serious. But the rest of the field, it's just like having a good time. And like, yes, people are racing hard and like pushing themselves, but it's like, clearly, if you're doing a cyclocross race and you're not in the top, if you're not podiuming, then you're doing it because you love it. And that's what's great about cyclocross.
That's what most people are doing.
Yeah.
I imagine it is very stressful and potentially overrated for the people who are getting top 5, top 10. Because at that point, you need 2 bikes. You need a person in the pits.
A jet
washing your
in the
stuff.
pits.
So you can switch bikes if it gets too muddy. Of course, there are some races which aren't muddy, which are probably great fun. But it's a lot of logistics, isn't it? Very good. And a lot of the riders who have entered road cycling with a cyclocross background end up being absolute hitters. So there's potentially a lot to be said for smashing yourself for an hour in a muddy field.
I tell
in
you
terms
what,
of training.
just last note on cyclocross. I went into cyclocross being a road cyclist, and literally within 2 races, you learn so much about handling a bike. It is insane. Like, you do a couple of seasons of cyclocross and you will just be phenomenal at handling a bike. Phenomenal. Because you have to.
And the tyres are small.
They don't have to be, though. Only if you're being competitive.
Really?
Yeah. You can use any bike you want.
Oh, they let you in depending on the... Well, okay, it's not like a sanctioned event or anything. Triathlon.
Overrated.
I feel like I can't say... My experience of triathlon has been filming people from afar at the Ironman World Champs and then doing a triathlon, fake triathlon, with the professional triathletes at their race pace for Ironman.
Yeah.
And I have a newfound respect for them.
Oh, yeah, the top end of triathlon, like it's bonkers.
Yeah. The bike bit was fine, but I've ridden the bike a lot. Running and swimming, I don't think I could ever reach that pace.
No, you wouldn't.
Even for half the duration.
Specifically, the 2 that you've highlighted, the top end at swimming, they're like borderline, like could be dead just swimmers, and the runners could be just runners.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
Is it 2.5 hour marathon?
Oh,
or 2 hours 4? I think it was 2 hours 40.
Right.
The guy was going for. Bonkers.
Off the back of having already done 5 hours of exercise at absolute top end.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Crazy.
I think it's overrated because it's all about money.
Aero.
Just
the whole thing.
Everything. Like, to enter an Ironman is probably like £1,000 or something or other, just for like the entrance fee. I think it's like 500, 600 quid.
If you want to do the World Champs one, it's getting to Hawaii.
Well, but you can't just turn up and do it. You have to qualify for it.
Right, yeah.
So you have to qualify it by doing other Ironman events, which will be all in a couple of grand a pop. That excludes all of your equipment, which inevitably, to be at that level, you have to spend a furious amount of money. It's like, I just, it's a great sport, but I just think it's overrated. I also despise swimming with a passion. So much so, I despise it. Duathlon, I really like.
Yeah.
And that is underrated because if people just go like, well, what's the point? What's the point of a
run
duathlon? Run, bike, run.
Run, bike, run. Okay.
I've done a couple of those and I love them. That is
There's
a
a
bit
Box Hill one of those. Is that right?
I
think there is. It's like laps of Box Hill and it's a run, bike, run.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Run, bike, run.
Probably quite fun, but horrible. Type 2 fun. Parkrun.
Unbelievably underrated.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, Parkrun is one of the greatest things ever created.
What is it?
So, it originally started in Bushy Park, actually. So, right next to the first ever Parkrun was just around the corner from your neck of the woods. Why are you looking at me like that? You're like, what?
I was listening to you intently.
All right. I thought you were like going to say something.
I was actually. Do you want to know what I was thinking in my head?
Yes,
I was
please.
thinking, where's Bushy Park?
Do you know now?
I haven't lived there for 2.5 years.
Okay,
I've forgotten which one Bushy Park was. Bushy Park.
So the first one was in Bushy Park. It is essentially a free 5-kilometer run every single Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at thousands of locations all around the world. You don't have to pay. You don't have to register. You don't have to... technically, you don't have to register. You register once when you create an account. You get a barcode. That's the only thing you need when you go and do a parkrun anywhere in the world. So you turn up. It'll be 9 o'clock. You run your event. When you finish, they give you another barcode. You then go to someone, scans both of them, and that gives you a time and a place. They're not races, but you can race them. It's kind of like a sportif in that respect. The front end are phenomenal athletes that are racing. But it's like a micro running event. The majority of people there, just like the cyclocross, for example, there's that 1% at the front which are like, right, I want to win this, and everyone else is like, I want to be fitter, I want to be healthier, I'm committing to something so that I get better over time. and have that focus. And I loved it when I started getting into running and triathlon and everything, because it was just a really good benchmark. Every Saturday I knew I was going to go to Hackney Marshes Parkrun and just beat myself up. Or inevitably chase one of my mates who you know, Ben Wickham, who is a phenomenal athlete and triathlete. And I used to just literally, his PB is 2 minutes quicker than mine. Hackney Marshes used to be an out and back.
What's your fastest ever 5K?
18:28.
Okay. It's quite fast.
Yeah, it is very fast. But the people I used to run with would be running 16 minutes. So even when I was running 18 minutes 28, I was like, I'm slow. I'm so much slower. How can I be 2 minutes slower than my mates?
Yeah, think of it in percentage.
It's monstrous.
That's so quick.
But my time was like top 1% of the country for 5Ks, which is like wild. So, for example, Ben Wickham, one of my old running mates, visited us, funnily enough, this weekend, and we were like, "Oh, let's go and do parkrun. Let's go and do my local parkrun." I don't know what shape he's in. We was like, he's going to go off at the front, and then I'm finishing my lap, and all of a sudden he comes past me, first place, and then bloody wins it. Which was a reminder to me. I was thinking about this yesterday. It really shows, because I always used to remember when I used to do this stuff that I was like, I'm not quick enough. It's because I was hanging around with the wrong people. I was hanging around with people like Ben Wickham that can turn up at a parkrun and win it,
without
and me thinking
barely
like,
doing any training.
Why am I not like these people? Why are they so much faster than me? It's because they are an anomaly. They are like as elite as you can be as a person without actually being like a professional runner.
Next up is listeners' takeover, and we have a question from Nathan.
Hello, Nathan.
Hi, Francis and Jimmy. I'm looking at getting into gravel riding for fun, and the bike I am most interested in comes with a few group set options. Do I go for Shimano GRX 800, 1x11, 1142 cassette with mechanical shifting, or the SRAM rival Mullet 1x12, 1150 cassette and wireless shifting? The SRAM is about $500 more than the Shimano. People online have said that the GRX should be better in terms of durability and build quality, but the SRAM setup has wider gear range, which could be helpful for someone who's only just getting into more hardcore cycling. Although I don't live in a very hilly area.
I wouldn't say that SRAM is more durable and has better build quality than GRX.
No, they said the GRX is better build quality.
Oh, right. I wouldn't say it's better build. I'd say they're about the same. I'd probably guess the GRX is more durable because it's not electronic. Surely it's going to be more durable because it's just simpler.
Oh, it's fully mechanical.
Yeah, fully mechanical. I think so.
That's a lot of money difference. That's like a huge chunk of money, $500.
SRAM E-Tap is a luxury. You do not need electric gears at all. You just don't. For me, the most important thing on any bike, but even more so on a gravel adventure bike, is gear range. I would always go for the widest gear range possible, but I wouldn't stretch myself so much financially that was... ultimately, I wouldn't throw money away to get an extra tooth, for example. It would be good to know what chain rings this is coming with. Because if that Shimano GRX is coming with like a 42 chainring and you've got 1142 cassette, that's a pretty sick gear range, and I would save the 500 quid.
It's a lot of money off. If you're not fussed about spending the extra money, I would say if your riding is what we were talking about earlier, it is not really gravel and it's mud, and your bike's getting absolutely caked in shit, then the electric shifting is better. Because it's so much less effort from you to change the gears, and then everything's getting like all the cables are getting clogged up with crap. No, it's a great product.
That is actually quite an interesting argument for it.
It's always been. I've always had that in the back of my head. Oh, the Shimano is engineered better. It's more reliable. However, I've been pretty much exclusively riding SRAM group sets over the last year. I rode across America on it, zero problems, and I put my bike through quite a lot. I've had mech hangers bending. I've had all sorts, and derailleur is still in perfect condition. Everything shifts crisp.
I think in this scenario, I would go with the GRX as long as the gear ratios were to my liking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've ridden that GRX group set. I have a rival group set. They're both very good. That's my take on it.
Mm.
Anything else to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay, cool.
Both would be fantastic choices.
I hope you choose wisely, Nathan.
Sorry for sitting on the fence. If you got any questions or a story, please send it to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk. That's all for this episode. And before you go, if you like this episode, please consider subscribing, following, or leaving us a review. It helps us grow the channel and allows us to bring you more stuff like this. Thank you and goodbye.
Wild Ones podcast.
Matt, please send us an outro. Thanks.
Wild Ones
Stop Jimmy from doing this.
Podcast.